they have difficulty breathing. So in these cases, we have to mechanically ventilate the patient. Next. Now, once you ventilate the patient, there are some effects of positive pressure ventilation as well. The first effect and the foremost is the cardiovascular effect. What positive pressure ventilator does is it actually causes compression of the great vessels. It increases the intrathoracic pressure and it compresses the great vessels. So the venous return to the heart is reduced. As the venous return is reduced, the stroke volume and the cardiac output subsequently reduces. So there is hypoperfusion to the organs of the body just because there is reduction in cardiac output because of positive pressure ventilation. So at times you see patient with positive inotropes or patient with peripheral vasopressors. They are just to maintain their vitals. And even the comorbidities, they actually add on to these effects of reducing cardiac output. So you need to monitor the patient in terms of vitals also when you are assessing and treating a patient. Then comes the renal system. Almost 25% of the cardiac output goes to the renal system. And so it is important that the renal system should be checked every day. So, and time on and off, because a reduction with cardiac output causes hypofiltration rate, GFR reduces, and oliguria can happen. The kidney tries to retain the fluid and edema can occur. So you need to check the renal system as well as the hepatic system. In the abdomen, because of the increased positive pressure, there could be bowel edema, obstruction, ascites, and constipation. If the patient had an abdominal surgery, the problem doubles because in the upper abdominal surgeries, there are many diaphragmatic fibers which get cut, and then the muscle disuse atrophy increases in such patients. When you are ventilating the patient, you are actually pulling off the load from the respiratory muscles. So they are likely going into a disuse atrophy. And this is where a role of physiotherapist will come into play again, that you need to train the respiratory muscles as well. The next come is neurological. As I have said, positive pressure ventilation causes compression of the great vessels, and so there is obstruction from the cerebral flow to the heart. There is venous congestion and increased cerebral pressure of headache, disturbed mental states, and ocular disturbances, abnormalities as well. The last I've written is the nutritional consideration. As I've said, the energy expenditure of the patient on a mechanical ventilator is very high. When the work of breathing is more, then the nutritional demand is more. So nutritionally also the patient has to be given optimal diet, whether it's from a Ryle's tube. Still, the patient needs a good amount of nutritional consideration. Next. Now the next is identification of ventilator mode. There are almost more than 23 functional modes of ventilator used, but we'll discuss the important 5 or 6 of them, and not all are being used every time. Only few of them are mostly used because of their advantages. As we know, when the benefit outweigh the risk, we go for it, may it be any procedure or a treatment. In identifying the ventilator mode, we need to identify with the help of parameters what mode is it, because it has been seen that different ventilator name the same mode differently. Like a CMV mode, controlled mandatory ventilation mode, is also named as controlled mode, or a continuous mode, continuous mandatory mode. So not getting confused in the names. When you see the parameters, you will come to know. How you do it, let's see. So when you see the breath on the ventilator display, a breath consists of an inspiratory cycle and an expiratory cycle as well. The inspiratory cycle and the expiratory cycles completes a breath. So a breath is a cycle of positive flow and a negative flow. The positive flow is the inspiration and the negative flow is expiration. The positive flow is in terms of ventilator, which is inspiration for the patient, and the negative flow is again in terms of ventilator, which is an expiration for the patient. So breath cycle consists of both inspiration and expiration. The time taken for inspiration is the inspiratory time, and the time taken for expiration is the expiratory time. Now with these, when the work of the ventilator is to be assessed, the pressure and the volume change is seen. So when you see resistance and compliance in this reference, because as there is the ventilator mechanics, there is a patient respiratory mechanics also. In patient respiratory mechanics, we have resistance and compliance. You need to see how is the resistance. So resistance is change in pressure by the change in flow. Resistance can be increased when there is obstruction of the airways. Say if there is a bronchospasm, the resistance will increase. The peak inspiratory pressure will be reached early. When there is obstruction in the airways because of secretions, the resistance is very high. So as a physiotherapist, you need to see how are the airways, are they patent or not. For example, as far as ventilator is concerned, if there is condensation in the ventilator circuit also, there is the inspiratory limb and the expiratory limb. If you find any condensation in either of them, mostly in the expiration limb, then you need to take off the condensed water so that the resistance reduces. In the same way, the compliance is actually the volume and the pressure reference. How much volume change is causing the pressure change. So for example, if you take a patient of restrictive lung disease, they usually have low compliance. They have a stiff chest. So a lot amount of pressure, a greater amount of pressure is actually needed to achieve that same amount of volume as compared to the one who has a normal compliance. Compliance always play an important role, and so does the resistance. Now assisted breath, if we see in a ventilator, is the one for which the ventilator will assist the patient. If the patient is unable to take a breath, the ventilator will assist. That is an assisted breath. So in this, the ventilator and the patient respiratory muscles both will work. This is an assisted breath. Then if we see breath, they have a trigger as well as a cycle. So these are terms of ventilators, trigger and cycle. So trigger is the starting of inspiration, and cycle is the end of the inspiration. Again, I repeat, trigger is the starting of inspiration and cycle is the end of inspiration. If you see the algorithm, cycles of all sorts. To make it simple, if the patient is starting the inspiration, it is patient triggered. If the ventilator is starting the inspiration, it is ventilator or machine triggered. If the patient is ending the inspiration, it is patient cycle. If the ventilator does it, it's machine cycle. So in the same way, if you have set time, say if you have set 10 breaths per minute, now every 6 seconds there will be a breath. If in the 6th second the patient doesn't initiate a breath, the ventilator will. So it will be a time triggered, because time will, as the time elapses, there will be a breath. So it is time triggered. So in this way, you can see who is triggering and who is cycling. On the right side of the screen, you see a pressure volume loop. Now this will give you a relation between the pressure and volume. As I've said in compliance, how is the volume change as compared to pressure? If the volume change with a little pressure is good, then the compliance is very good. If you take patients with COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, they have a very high compliance. They have a compliance more than required, in fact. They have chronic air trapping, hyperinflated lungs. They have difficulty in expiration. They have a very good compliance. Even a little volume, even a little pressure of air causes a lot of volume inflation in those patients. That is also not good. So the slope represents the pressure volume relationship of a normal healthy adult. Now, if the slope drops either to the pressure side or the volume side, the compliance will change. Next, coming to the modes. Next slide. Yeah. So in the mode, if we see breath, the breath could be mandatory breath, spontaneous breath, or intermittent mandatory breath. Mandatory breath are the breath which are being given by the ventilator. Spontaneous breath is the one which the patient takes, and intermittent mandatory is the one where the ventilator will work mandatorily, but the patient will give spontaneous breath in between. That is why it is intermittent mandatory. So if we'll see the first mode here in continuous mandatory ventilation mode. So all breaths are mandatory. The patient is not allowed to take any breath. Ideally, the patients are on sedation or respiratory depressant or neuromuscular blockages. When you have patient, you need to ventilate for more than 24 hours, or if the patient is had a severe brain injury, or the patient has an epileptical attack, then you need to put the patient on the continuous mandatory ventilation mode. The patient is not allowed here to breathe. As you can see in the pressure tracking, the wave starts from 0, it goes to 40, and then it's come back to 0. There is absolutely no deflection in the waveform. 0 is the baseline pressure, 40 is the peak. Then it comes again to the 0. So as you see, there is no change in the waveform in a CMD mode. And the next which comes is the assist or control mode. In assist or control mode, the patient is allowed to breathe other than the mechanical ventilator frequency. Say if you have set the minimum breath at 10 and the patient is breathing at 12. Till the patient is breathing at 12, the ventilator will not trigger. But as soon as if the condition of the patient deteriorates, say because of any reason, and the breath frequency come down to 10 or less, then the ventilator will trigger. The ventilator will maintain at least 10 breaths per minute, as you have set 10 as the breath frequency. So this is how the assist control mode works. Now you have a volume control and pressure control in all of them. What is volume and pressure control in simple language is when you are talking about the volume control, you are actually controlling the volume. You are actually taking care how the volume should be for the patient. If you are talking about the pressure control, you are setting the pressure. You are setting the peak inspiratory pressure. Set the pressure, the volume which is being delivered to the patient will be dependent on the resistance and the compliance of the patient. As we have seen, the resistance and compliance of the patient will decide in the volume control the pressures. If you setting the volume, so there is a preset volume of flow in the volume control, and the pressure will vary according to the resistance and compliance of the patient's respiratory mechanics. So volume control and pressure control you'll see in combination with a lot of modes. Next, PEEP, positive end expiratory pressure. This is a very important mode. For all the patients, you need alveolar recruitment. You don't allow the alveoli to collapse. When there are high chances that the alveoli will collapse, there are chances of high atelectasis area in the lung, then you go for a PEEP mode. PEEP mode, the indication is intrapulmonary shunting or a refractory hypoxemia when the functional residual capacity is reduced. In intrapulmonary shunting, the pulmonary capillaries and the alveoli capillary membrane, the junction, there is no diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and the blood goes from the pulmonary capillary as it is. So there is no exchange. In these cases, PEEP mode will help because it will keep the alveoli into a distended position, and that will allow the exchange of gases at the alveolar capillary membrane. If you see in the waveform, the pressure starts from 10 because we have set the peak, peak expiratory pressure at 10. It will never go below 10 unless the patient gives a spontaneous activity. In the A wave pressure starts from 10, it goes to 50. So 50 is the peak inspiratory pressure. It comes back to 10 in the A wave. But if you see the B wave, there is a small negative deflection. That means the patient has put up a spontaneous activity. So just by looking at the waveform, you can actually come to know how much the ventilator is doing the activity and how much the patient is putting up his or her own effort in respiration. Now, with the PEEP mode, there are complications. PEEP mode, as I have said in positive pressure ventilation also, it reduces cardiac output and thus it reduces the blood pressure. So the blood pressure reduces in PEEP mode. There is one more complication as there could be rupture of the alveoli because of high pressure. If the PEEP crosses the rupture point of the alveoli, then there could be a barotrauma, a rupture in the alveoli causing pneumothorax and other complications as well. One other complication of PEEP is increased intracranial pressure because the venous return reduces from the cerebral venous system and thus it causes venous congestion. So there is increase in ICP also with PEEP mode. Next. So CPAP mode, it is adjacent to PEEP mode. When you apply the PEEP mode to a spontaneous breathing patient, it is a CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure. Then comes the BiPAP mode. All these modes, BiPAP, CPAP, PEEP, they are used in invasive as well as in non-invasive ventilation quite very commonly. In BiPAP mode, you have a different and independent positive pressure of inspiration as well as expiration. Say if you have set the inspiratory pressure at 12 centimeters of water and the expiration at 8, the difference is of 4. 8 EPAP is nothing else than PEEP, positive end expiratory pressure. And IPAP, inspiratory positive airway pressure, what it does, it improves the ventilation. It normalizes the partial of arterial carbon dioxide and thus it reduces the work of breathing. And the EPAP, EPAP improves the FRC and reduces the intrapulmonary shunting by causing alveolar recruitment as PEEP does. So you have two functions in the same mode. That is the BiPAP mode where you have two levels of positive airway pressure, IPAP and EPAP. On the right, you see intermittent mandatory ventilation. Now, in this intermittent mandatory, the ventilator will give mandatory breath, but then it also allows the patient to breathe in between. Now, we have a very commonly used weaning mode as SIMV mode, synchronized intermittent mandatory ventilation mode. It has a synchronization window. So the synchronization window is the time interval which the ventilator gives to the patient and it senses whether there is any spontaneous respiratory activity of the patient or not. If there is, the ventilator will sense and will assist the patient. So the ventilator will work in synchrony with the patient. That is why it is called a synchronization intermittent mandatory ventilation. If the patient does not, then the ventilator will give a mandatory breath what we have said. That is why it is intermittent mandatory. So SIMV mode is usually put up when we want to wean off the patient, when the patient is improving, when there is only partial ventilatory failure, when we want to take the patient off the ventilator, we will put the patient on SIMV mode. Now there are advantages of SIMV mode. As I have said, a patient on mechanical ventilator will have a disused muscle atrophy, especially of the diaphragm. If the patient is on CMV mode, continuous mandatory ventilation mode, studies have said that almost 2 days after 48 hours starts the disused atrophy of diaphragm. There is proteolysis, which induces and the diaphragmatic muscles go into atrophy. So in SIMB mode, as the ventilator is allowing the patient to breathe, it is allowing the diaphragm and other inspiratory muscle to work. So they are not going into muscle disuse atrophy. And as a physiotherapist, your role is to strengthen and endure the muscle. And you can do this by using inspiratory muscle training. We'll see. There are also complications of SIMD mode. If you want to wean off the patient too early, you can go into a weaning failure. You can increase the work of breathing again. But if it is safe enough, looking at the patient parameter and patient response, it's good to wean off on an SIMD mode. Next. Now, if we monitor the patient parameter, it is very important to monitor the patient parameters, because if you are monitoring, you can see the difference your treatment is giving you pre and post. You can actually see the value changing if you are treating the patient in the better way, assessing the patient thoroughly and then treating accordingly. Now you see vital signs as heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, respiratory rate. You have to see all this. Any fluctuation, you need to look out for the reason. Say for example, the patient has a tachycardia. In any event of an acute MI, there will be a tachycardia. In a drug reaction, if the patient has fever, also if the patient is stressed out, if the patient is anxious, if the patient's work of breathing is more, then also the patient will be tachycardia. So you need to assess the reason for that. It's not the same that if you have seen a fluctuating value and you just finish off your treatment, or you just stop the treatment. No, you need to find what's the reason. If you can correct, just go and correct. Say if the patient is in stress, anxious, as usually the patients are. Imagine a patient with an open mouth, 2 inches wide apart, and is breathing through mouth, and the pressurized air gas is going in the lungs and coming out for hours, for days, for weeks, and in some unfortunate patient for months. If I'll make you do an activity right here, just do it. Open your mouth 2 inches wide apart. Don't put your fingers inside. Just wash your hands before you do that. Open your mouth and keep your mouth open. Breathe in from your mouth and exhale from your mouth itself. So it will be like don't close your mouth, at least for a minute. Let's do it for just 1 minute. Keep your mouth open and breathe in from your mouth. And breath out as well. Now do the same activity with a little bit of pressure. Because the ventilator gives a pressurized air. So take in air with the pressure, keeping your mouth open. Don't close your mouth. Don't speak. Keep your mouth at least 2 inches wide apart. And breathe. Relax now. Can you imagine the amount of mental stress the patient is undergoing who is on a mechanical ventilator? So it's very common to be stressful, to be anxious for a patient to be on a ventilator. As a clinician, as a physiotherapist, it's your duty to go and counsel the patient. Talk to the patient, but don't expect the patient to talk back, okay? Talk to the patient and see and just counsel the patient, just relax the patient, and then you can start your treatment in a much better position. You will get much better results. So as you see the vitals, you should do the chest inspection. In chest inspection, you see the chest movements. Visually, you see it and then you auscultate. Auscultating is very important, as you'll come to know the status of the lung, the lobes affected, the segment very specifically. And when you see a chest radiograph, which is mandatory, for a mechanically ventilated patient to get a chest radiograph. When you see the chest radiograph, you can actually cross-check your auscultation finding with that of the radiograph. And you can come to know the exact location where you need to treat. How is the lung? Is there any collapse, or is there a patch of pneumonia, or anything, or whatever your findings in the chest radiograph. So this is how you can confirm the respiratory status. Now you need to see the fluid balance also. You need to see the urine output, as I've said, in the renal consideration. Then coming to ABG, arterial blood gas analysis. They will tell you how is the partial pressure of oxygen and how is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. The pH, the acidity of the blood. Anion gap. Anion gap is the relation between the cations and anions. It will give you an idea about the base as well as the acids of the body. So it's very important. It's very important to check the ABG of the patient. Then comes the end-tidal carbon dioxide. End-tidal carbon dioxide will give you an idea of the carbon dioxide level measured at the end of exhalation. Then the cerebral perfusion pressure, especially in the patient who had a head injury or had a surgery in the central nervous system in the brain or the spinal cord. It is important to measure the CPP. Next, as in the next slide, you see a chest radiograph and the auscultation finding. If you take an example, the diminished breath sounds you see in where there is an atelectasis, where there is a main stem intubation. If there is intubation on the right bronchus, because right bronchus is more in line with the trachea, so it's very common when you intubate, you can go into the right bronchus. If this happens, you will see absolutely no breath sounds on the left and more on the right. Pleural effusion can also diminish the breath sounds as well as the pneumothorax. So this is how you can actually correlate. Next, on the left, you see a measurement device of end-tidal carbon dioxide, that is the capnograph, and on the right is the pulse oximeter, where commonly used for saturation of oxygen. Next, now as a physiotherapist, your aims and objective as you approach the patient is to improve the oxygenation and ventilation, to maintain the airway, and to see if there are any tracheobronchial secretions, because they will cause increase in resistance of the airways. If there is any atelectasis per se, you need to open up the atelectatic area by your treatment strategies. The next is important is the prevention and treatment of the pulmonary infection. Example, VAP, ventilatory associated pneumonia. This is very common. The incidence rate goes from 10 to almost 65%. Out of 10 patients, almost 6 patients are likely to go into a ventilator associated pneumonia if they are on prolonged ventilation and if they are not treated in terms of their bronchial hygiene. So as a physical therapist, it's your responsibility to check, to prevent and treat the ventilator associated pneumonia and other complications of ventilator like acute lung injury and ARDS, etc. Now as a physiotherapist, you play a role in weaning off the patient from the ventilator. Even after extubation, you should follow up the patient to make sure that the patient strength, endurance of the respiratory and the skeletal muscle achieved to its optimal. Next. Now there are multiple manual techniques as you see, but the first statement is physiotherapy intervention in a mechanically ventilated patient is individually tailored. Looking at the ventilatory mode, the ventilatory parameters, looking at the monitoring parameters of the patient, and looking at the response of the patient to your treatment, the patient response to your treatment, all the three things. On this basis, you will tailor your treatment on a ventilated patient. You have limb mobilization and chest physiotherapy techniques. On the basis of your auscultation and chest radiograph, you have actually targeted the lobe and segment which is most affected. You treat that first and then the lesser one. IMT is inspiratory muscle trainer. then positioning, early mobilization, ribs mobilization, and there are many techniques. Next. Okay, so positioning of a ventilated patient is important because you need to give a symmetrical ventilation to both the lungs. So it is usually been advised that turning every 2 hours is important. Positioning while giving a postural drainage to a specific segment, specific lobe is very important in a gravity assisted position so that you can drain that lobe particularly and you can clear that part of the chest. Next. This slide tell you about the inspiratory muscle trainer. There are studies where in COPD patient, in neuromuscular disease patient, IMT is being used and they have shown significant improvement in strength and endurance of the diaphragmatic muscle. I repeat, IMT has shown significant improvement in strength and endurance in the diaphragmatic muscles. So it is very important if the patient has weakness of inspiratory muscle or if the patient is on prolonged ventilation, you should use inspiratory muscle trainer. So on the left, the inspiratory muscle trainer, what you see is, so there is a screw which you just rotate and the tension increases for that. When you apply the IMT on an inspiratory limb of the ventilator, initially you have to set the pressure at 30% of the maximum pressure set at the ventilator, 30% of the PI max. You start with this and you progress further, and within few sessions, few days, you will see a definite improvement in the inspiratory capacity of the patient, and it's easier for the patient to wean off from the ventilator when you are using an IMT. Next. Early mobilization. It is very important to mobilize the patient. So the baseline is mobilize as early as possible, but it should be feasible. It is not that you should mobilize it irrespective of seeing anything. You have to see the ventilator mode, the settings, the patient parameters, the patient status, the patient response, and then you decide when to mobilize and how much to mobilize. The advantages are a lot in terms of early mobilization. It improves ventilation and oxygenation. It helps in bronchial hygiene. It increases the functional residual capacity. It helps in weaning of the patient, and thus it reduces the ICU stay. You can do a lot. You can make the patient sit on the bed. You can make the patient sit on chair, do some upper limb, lower limb activities synchronized with the breathing. You can make the patient stand and walk with the ventilators. In my personal experience, I have seen when I mobilize the patient on ventilator, I get surprising results and the wean off become much easier than it was before mobilizing. But the only thing is you have to keep monitoring the patient when the patient is on mechanical ventilator. So next slide. With this, I would like to end and thank you again for giving your time listening to this seminar. Thank you so much. Over to Dr. Tejas.
Yes, all participants are requested. If you have any doubts, you can ask now. You can message in chat.
Okay. So, Dr. Tejas, can you see any questions out there?
No, still now, no doubts asked by sir.
Okay. Thank you so much for the compliments. I can see a lot of compliments out here, but no questions as of. Dr. Tejas, if you have any questions, you can ask.
Yes, I think one of the participant is asking something. Yes, Poonam Gupta.
Okay.
Yeah, what you want to ask? You have just written. Can you please tell sir like that regarding PIMX? They are asking sir. PIMX training.
Regarding regarding
PIMX
IMT
training.
Hello.
training. Yeah, regarding IMT training.
Yeah.
So,
Hello.
okay.
Can I ask
So,
you this?
yes. Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
Go
Can
ahead,
you hear
ma'am.
me now? Yeah. I just wanted to ask कि IMT training करवाने के लिए what are the protocols? Like, is there any? Because I do have the threshold IMT device. I just
Good.
wanted to ask how many repetition and how many, like, is there any a particular protocol for that? Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you, ma'am. There are guidelines for IMT training, but as a clinical therapist, I rely on the patient response, solely on the patient response. See, monitoring, as I've said, is very important. When you use the IMT, start with the least pressure with the IMT. Let the patient breathe, because as soon as you attach the IMT, you can see the difference in the effort of the patient, inspiration and expiration, right? As soon as you attach it, you start with one set, give a break, give another set, give a break, and the third one. Stop it there itself if it's on day one. When you give session for 2 to 3 times a day, depending on the work of breathing of the patient and respiratory mechanics, after a day or two, you will come to know how much this patient can bear actually. But ideally, if we say, we usually start with 2 sets of 10 with the minimum pressure which the patient can tolerate, and then it can be given twice or thrice a day. Even it is recommended to be given 3 to 4 hours in a day. Okay.
Yeah. Now, Renu ma'am has some doubts sir, in this slide. I have just shared that slide,
Yes, ma'am.
positioning and ventilated
Yes, ma'am.
patient.
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Can you ask?
Just unmute your mic, ma'am. Hello.
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 Hello. Sir, my
Yes,
question
I.
is,
Mhm.
hello. My
Yeah,
question is,
you are
sir,
audible. Go ahead.
yes, sir. My question is what is the use of ribs mobilization, sir?
What is the use of rib mobilization?
Yes, sir.
In
Yes.
if you have, yeah, so uh, there's something called as inspiratory rib and expiratory rib.
Yes,
If
sir.
you have a chest wall compliance issue, say if a patient has kyphoscoliosis, then
Yes, sir.
there is issue with the compliance of the chest wall and not the lung.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
then
sir.
the kyphoscoliosis won't allow the lung to expand, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
in this case, you need to release the soft tissue and you need to mobilize the ribs as well, so that in spite of the kyphoscoliotic posture, you can get the maximum amount of ribs expansion. Rib mobilization is also used in rib pain. It is also used when the rib is stuck in inspiration or expiration.
Okay, sir.
But that scope comes out of the ventilator. Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
it is
Thank
very
you, sir.
important because, yeah, because the vertebra is attached to the ribs, and if there are displacement in the vertebrae, it will cause some dysfunctional issues with the ribs as well. So you need to check the vertebrae and the ribs simultaneously.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
At times, in the mechanically ventilated patient, it is not that comfortable, as you can treat the same in an OPD basis. But still, if the patient is complaining of pain in the ribs, you can go for it. You can go for the manual techniques. You
Okay,
can
sir.
give end expiratory stretches. Yes, you can give PNF techniques. Definitely, it will help.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
One doubt is by the
Mhm.
Bhumika, what are the criteria to wean the patient?
Weaning criteria.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Uh, Weaning criteria. There are values of ABG, of partial pressure of arterial oxygen, carbon dioxide, and pH levels. You see, we give a spontaneous breathing trial to the patient. We actually wean off the patient, and we reduce all the supports of pressure and volumes, and we see in duration of at least 1.5 day how the patient work of breathing is. The the inspiratory and expiratory limbs are connected, but then we see the work of breathing and airway patency of the patient respiratory mechanics. They are, along with this clinical and ABG, we take an X-ray and see how's the status of the lung. So there are some 4 5 subtypes on the basis of which we wean off the patient.
So again, one more doubt. Is
Yeah,
there any role of physiotherapy to correct the inspiratory-expiratory ratio?
definitely. In COPD patients who have prolonged expiration, because COPD patients have chronic air trapping, right? So they have hyperinflated lungs. They have difficulty in expiration. When you give a pursed lip breathing, you are actually creating an auto peak, the same positive end expiratory pressure mode, auto peak. The auto peak will allow alveolar recruitment and it will directly correct the inspiratory expiratory ratio. In a mechanically ventilated patient, what you can do is when the patient is spontaneously breathing, you can, if it's an obstructive COPD patient, you can ask the patient to do expiration manually with your hands in the to the ribs as well, and thus you can change the inspiratory expiratory ratio. Very simply speaking, if there is secretion in the airways, you have given a good postural drainage and chest physiotherapy after the suctioning, the IE ratio will change.
Again, one more doubt, sir. If the patient is on ECMO system,
Yes.
then what does the
Hmm.
ventilator? How does the ventilator can be used?
Can you repeat?
If the patient is on ECMO, ECMO, ECMO system, sir, then what? How does the ventilator can be used?
How the ventilator can be used?
Yes, yes, sir.
Let the intensivist decide how the ventilator can be used.
Okay, sir. Sir, and again, one more doubt. What we have to do when the patient has diaphragm weakness when the patient is on ventilators?
Yes. So diaphragm weakness is very common in ventilated patient. You should allow inspiration in terms of your manual techniques. You should give all the techniques which you read in the book, segmental expansion and end expiratory stretches, the PNF techniques. What they do is they improve the inspiration, they improve the inspiratory capacity, and thus they improve the excursion of the diaphragmatic fibers, thus not allowing the diaphragm to go into disuse atrophy, right? Along with this, if you use inspiratory muscle trainer, this will definitely improve the diaphragmatic muscle strength. If you early mobilize the patient, that will also improve the FRC and the excursion of the diaphragm. So these are all the strategies which you can use to improve the diaphragmatic muscle activity. Synchronization with the breath, upper limbs, lower limbs, making them stand, all these will improve the diaphragmatic activities for sure. And there are
Yes,
backup
sir.
literature for the same. Yes.
And again, one doubt: how to do rib mobilization?
So, okay. So you have to take the patient to the sideline ideally, and you just slide your hand over the, say if this is the border of the chest on the rib cage, you just slide your hand down, and the inspiratory rib will be felt as a bump, right? So you put your base of the palm and you let the patient breathe. After the expiration, at the end expiration, you give a downward thrust, not an inward thrust, a downward thrust, and thus you correct the inspiratory rate itself. This is one of the
Sir,
techniques.
the techniques of the rib mobilization are given in any book?
Remobilization. mm, at this time, I don't remember, but I'll definitely share. Uh, uh, Rather than going to the books, if you'll see literature, if you'll see research article, that will help you in a better way, is what I recommend. If you are going to techniques per se, all right. So if you search rib mobilization techniques in any of the medical index journal, you will get the studies and get the proper stepwise procedure as well. But definitely, I'll
Okay,
share the book with Dr. Tejas
Okay, sir.
once
okay,
I'll
sir.
remember any book. Yeah.
Sir, can we see again this because I missed the starting session of this session. So can we see again anywhere?
What? Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
You can contact Dr. Tejas for the same. The whole session
Yes,
is
ma'am. Whole
recorded
whole session
and
is recorded. Yeah, we are
yeah,
going to share
yeah, yeah.
this. Yeah, we are going to share this on your YouTube channel. You will get the link also, ma'am, for that.
okay.
Yes, sir. We are just end with the doubt. Yeah, ma'am. Yes, please ask me. Yes, sir. So we are ending with the doubts. It was really great session. Thank you, sir, for sharing explicit knowledge and keen aspect of physiotherapy role in invasive mechanical ventilators. Yes, on behalf of BITS Institute of Physiotherapy, I especially thank our founder and president chairman, Honorable Sri Jagdish Patel, sir, our CMD, Honorable Sri Dhruje Patel, sir, and Joint Managing Trustee, Srimati Kamalben Patel, ma'am, for allowing us to organize this session. I extend my gratitude to our campus director, Sri S.K. Patel sir, and our beloved principal, Dr. Mehul Jadhav, for allowing us to arrange this session. I would like to thank you to our vice principal, Dr. Sarfraz Nawaz Shah sir, as well as IIP Gujarat State, IIP Women's Cell for continuous support. My special gratitude to Dr. Avni Vasant ma'am, HOD Computer Department, Babara Institute of Technology for guidance in online classes, and Gade Dada for graphic designing. Last, I would like to thank our all faculty members and all the participation for attending these sessions with great enthusiasm. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
It was really great session, sir. We enjoyed and we have learned so many things from this PowerPoint and this webinar.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure being here, sharing the information. It's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks a
sir.
lot.
Thanks. Yeah, sir. We are ending the session, sir.
Yeah.
Bye, sir.